Ford is coming for Turo. Just this week, a Ford patent became public that Ford filed earlier this year that would essentially create or allow Ford vehicles to be a part of a peer-to-peer car rental system. The source for this patent is Ford Authority, and I will include a link to the article down in the description below, giving them credit. But the patent itself is actually a US patent application, and so it is legit. The patent outlines a software system that would, according to Ford, implement systems and methods for secure peer-to-peer vehicle rentals. Now, the information that we have regarding this is relatively limited, but my understanding is that Ford wants to create a system where someone could make their Ford available to rent, people could rent a Ford, rental agreements and data would all be automatically gathered and embedded through this system. And it seems as though they're aiming for kind of an all-in-one, secure method for people to either share or rent cars. And as a result, if somebody wanted to rent a Ford through this system, they wouldn't necessarily have to share secure information like their ID, birthday, driver's license number, things like that. But it would also, in theory, provide the vehicle owner or the host in this situation with enough security and peace of mind that they wouldn't have to worry about their car being stolen. Truthfully, in a way, this platform that Ford seems to be proposing reminds me more of GetAround than it does of Turo. With GetAround, it's required that all vehicles have to have a tracker GetAround device installed, which comes equipped with a kill switch, remote lock and unlock, as well as GPS. On GetAround, you don't have to verify your guest license like you do with Turo. In fact, with GetAround, your guest communication is pretty limited. And because of this, the passivity with GetAround is significantly higher than the passivity, say, with Turo. So truthfully, it seems as though this is very similar to what GetAround already does, but obviously Ford would want to do it with just Ford vehicles and their own Ford network, and they would probably have to add a different spin on it to attract hosts that may not be interested in GetAround but would be interested in this new Ford service. Another example of the similarities between what Ford is proposing and GetAround is, for example, on GetAround, if a guest does not extend your rental or the rental with your vehicle, you can actually lock them out of the car or prevent them from driving it due to the ignition kill switch feature. You also aren't typically able to see the GPS location of the guest during the actual rental, but once the rental is over, that GPS location becomes public and now you can see where your vehicle is. Obviously, the idea behind this is a sense of privacy and security on behalf of the guest while the rental is taking place, but it also provides a level of security and peace of mind for the host, knowing that once the rental agreement or the rental period is over, you can find out where your car is. And based off of Ford's verbiage in this patent, it looks as though they're looking to do something extremely similar, which is expressed in the specific section in this patent. The example method may also include storing the data on a ledger wherein a first device associated with an owner of the vehicle is prevented from remotely controlling a first set of functions of the vehicle during the duration of the rental. So again, this could include things like remote unlock and lock, remote start, as well as GPS location, all of which is very, very similar to what GetAround already does. Now, truthfully, this Ford patent and the idea that Ford is wanting to dip their toes into the peer-to-peer car sharing space comes as no surprise. Peer-to-peer car sharing is the future, and Ford is not the first, nor will they be the last company who's wanting to get a slice of that pie. But you know what they say, history does repeat itself, and I don't know that I would be betting my money on a Ford system, at least not whenever it comes to a Turo/GetAround competitor situation. Over the last decade, there have been a ton of companies, specifically automakers, who have come out with Turo and GetAround competitors, with probably one of the more successful and closely related ones coming from General Motors and their Maven system. In 2016, GM launched Maven, which was a peer-to-peer car sharing service for General Motor vehicles. This is actually really similar to what Ford is wanting to do today, though I would say that Ford's current system that they're proposing through this patent is much more tech-focused than the Maven system from GM, which was quite a long time ago and was well before car sharing was as popular as it is today. And so in some ways, General Motors was actually well ahead of their time here. And yet, despite this, General Motors shut down Maven in April of 2020. Now, GM blamed COVID-19 and the pandemic as to why they shut down Maven, but let's be real, Maven was shut down in April of 2020, which was only about a month into the pandemic. Maven was already sort of on its way out, and COVID-19 was a perfect scapegoat for the closure of that business. But GM isn't the only one that has pursued a Turo competitor. BM and Daimler partnered on Share Now, which was more of a Zipcar competitor. That service was shut down in February of 2020. Volkswagen experimented with Porsche with a program called Host. The idea here was flexible luxury car ownership ownership where someone could rent a Porsche from a Porsche owner. This was launched in 2018, and actually Porsche ended up partnering with Turo on this at some point, though the program was sunsetted in October of 2020. Volkswagen also had a different car sharing program called WeShare. My understanding is that they were never here in the United States, at least not on a real solid basis. But Volkswagen ended up selling WeShare to Miles Mobility in 2022, citing profitability as the biggest factor. And Miles Mobility is based in Germany and what seems to be a relatively small presence in some select German markets. We of course also had Avail, which was not an automaker but was a peer-to-peer car sharing platform that closed most of their locations this year. And the most recent player we have placing their hat into the ring in the peer-to-peer car sharing space is Uber. And truthfully, of all of the companies that have tried to compete with Turo, I would say that Uber probably has the highest likelihood of success. Because while all of these different companies are within the same automotive industry, I would say that the leap from automaker to peer-to-peer car sharing platform is much larger than the leap from ride-sharing platform to peer-to-peer car sharing platform. And because of that, and just because of the nature of Uber, I think that they have the biggest chance of success here, and even with them, I probably am not going to be holding my breath. Now, it's obvious based off of the companies that I just discussed that the idea of competing with Turo or even GetAround is nothing new for automotive-based companies. But like Maven, Porsche, Volkswagen, and Avail, I ultimately think that Ford will also fail. And this really comes down to the nature of peer-to-peer car sharing. You see, peer-to-peer car sharing is a pretty messy industry. At least it can be. People steal your cars, people leave your cars trashed, and people wreck your cars. And to be able to make peer-to-peer car sharing work, not only do you need to be able to find hosts that are willing to accept and embrace this reality, but you also need to be able to make the financial aspect of the equation work as well. And I think that this is where many Turo competitors end up falling short. Claims for Turo are extremely expensive. I've done Turo breakdowns here on this channel many times, and the amount of money that Turo spends on insurance, damage claims, and just general claims for Turo hosts and Turo guests is an astronomical amount of money. And for a long time, this claims piece of the equation was actually what was preventing Turo from being profitable. Which is why whenever we look at the Turo business model and how Turo has shifted their policies over the years, their policy shifts almost always have to do with claims. How much you can charge for claims, what the deductible is, what the standards associated with these claims are, and guest and host expectations whenever it comes to being reimbursed or paying for these claims. The vast majority of shifts by Turo over the years since I joined the platform in 2017 have revolved claims and how Turo resolves and pays out these claims. And this ultimately comes down to the fact that claims are so incredibly costly, and while they are a necessary part of being a peer-to-peer car sharing business, if not managed correctly, it can ultimately be what kills the business altogether. It's what causes these companies to not be profitable in many ways, which is why many of these companies end up just closing and shuttering their doors. And I predict that Ford will be no different. Over the last decade or so, automakers have been desperately trying to attract a very specific market. And that market is the type of person who needs access to a car, but they probably don't need to own one. This is blatantly obvious through the rollout of these peer-to-peer car sharing platforms, subscription-based models, or Zipcar-like services. But obviously something isn't working here because none of these different models are sticking. And I don't know if it's something that's deeply flawed in the way that these companies are doing business, or if it's just because Turo was the first to market and they've grown the biggest name in this space, with GetAround coming in second. But whatever it is, I'm definitely skeptical of this new Ford patent and what it means for the car sharing community. And truthfully, I would be surprised if it gets rolled out at all. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.